Viewers, welcome to the talk show Promising Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. And this is Sinha M.S. Sayeed, anchoring this very talk show. Today we have two guests from the financial sector and economic sector. One is Dr. Sattar, chairman of Policy Research Institute, and he is one of the leading economists in the world at the same time, an acclaimed intellectual in the Asian context also. How are you, Dr. Sattar?
Thank you very much. I'm fine, but I feel better when the economy is doing very well.
Thank you very much. Well, other being Mr. Abdur Rahim. He is a financial analyst. At the same time, he was former executive director of Bangladesh Bank. How are you, Mr. Rahim?
Thanks. Nice. I am fine when monetary policy is working better.
Thank you. Well, Dr. Sattar, you prefer to be known as the economist. Well,
as a trade economist,
being a leading economist, what is your overall understanding about the state of economy in Bangladesh at this very moment?
Thank you very much. That is a very comprehensive question. I would look at it in two parts. One is what is the current state of the economy, and what is, the overall performance of the economy over these 5+ decades. And I would like to compare the current state of the economy with a journey, on an airplane. We start the journey, everything is, fine. It faces turbulence in the course of the journey. And then the pilots steer the plane and have a safe landing. There is a similar situation in the Bangladesh economy context, which is that we have had a fairly decent, smooth, steady growth journey for several decades. And then in the past couple of years, we are facing turbulence. I would call that turbulence and the origin of this turbulence, as we all know, is from the external sector. But then there were some missteps from the domestic policy side, which lingered that effect of the turbulence. But then we have, as it seems, that we have changed course and we are now moving in the right direction. And the hope is that this journey will end like a safe landing. We would have what is called in economic terms a soft landing. A soft landing at the end of all this turbulence is a very welcome phenomenon. It could, if it's a hard landing, another term, it could cause more, difficulties for the people. Already, we know inflation is the elephant in the room right now, and it's causing problems in the macro sphere. But more important, it is affecting our, the poorest section of the population. Inflation is like a regressive tax. See, it's hurting the poor more than the rich people. So it is, I think, the first priority for a resolution, a solution, which policymakers have to put in all the instruments that they have in their hands to bring inflation down to acceptable levels. So that is the main challenge right now for policymakers. And it's not just one instrument with which you solve this inflation problem. There are several instruments. Monetary management is one. Fiscal management has to support that monetary management. And on the other hand, you also have external, balance of payment issues, exchange rate issues that also have to be handled. And these are all interrelated. You can't say that, we'll just work on monetary policy and the rest can work themselves out. But no, this is coordinated monetary actions, coordinated fiscal actions, and coordinated external balance actions, exchange rate management, export, import, and the entire balance of payments. All of these have to work together in a coordinated way. But the good news is, in the recent past, we have seen that the government has finally And the Bangladesh Bank deserves praise for that, for finally coming to accept, it's like biting the bullet at the end of this course. So they have now understood the challenges are too much for doing tinkering with any policy. So they have to take some hard policies, and they have taken, thanks to the support that IMF is giving with their release of the third tranche. All this, are good indications that we will be able to resolve this turbulence, if you will, in the short to medium term. Inflation should be tamed. Balance of payments should restore its stable position. The current account deficit would have to be restored in its stable position, and not by just putting too much control over imports. It's not a good idea. That is clear by now. And the decision to go for a flexible exchange rate tells us that there is concern about maintaining foreign exchange reserve levels. In order to maintain foreign exchange reserve levels and also grow foreign exchange reserves, you just cannot afford to have a fixed exchange rate system or close to a fixed exchange rate system. If you have a fixed exchange rate system or something close to it, it would be difficult to maintain your foreign exchange reserve level unless you have a huge stock of foreign exchange reserves. What was happening was, I think that was a erroneous, direction of policy, trying to control imports in order to save reserves. That hurts the economy severely, because after all, our economy is an import-reliant economy, and the reason for that is we used to be an agrarian economy, with agriculture being the main producer of goods and services, but that was back in the 1970s. We are no longer an agrarian economy. This is an industrialized, manufacturing-based economy. 96% of our exports are manufacturing goods. Okay, so when you have manufacturing base, larger base, it means it's import reliant, because you don't have all the resources you need for manufacturing production at home. Jute production was a different kind of manufacturers. We had the we had the raw materials at home. But when you talk of ready-made garments, when you talk of ceramics, when you talk of any other footwear or anything else, domestic availability of raw materials and intermediate goods in particular is not required. It's not necessary. You have to have an open trade regime where you can procure inputs and produce whatever goods you have comparative advantage in. And Bangladesh has substantial comparative advantage in labor-intensive products.
Thank you very much. In labor-intensive product.
Thank you very much.
Well, Mr. Abdur Rahim, you had a very bright background of banking in the Central Bank of Bangladesh, and you have also chaired as one of the EDs of the bank. Almost you have 35 years experience. Now you are one of the leading financial analysts and banking also. What is your realization? What Dr. Sattar spoke and explained?
Well, let me start with the comments that Bangladesh has a strong track record of growth and development, and Bangladesh economy was growing for last 20 years above 7% growth rate, and it was 8% in 2017 and 18. Just immediate after what he was referring to turbulence, it was a pause what brought by the COVID-19, and it brings a dimensional problems, barriers, and some others. While economy was just going to recover, and then again it came to Ukraine-Russian war. What brings another headwind. I will say this, Bangladesh economy was facing long headwinds from that sector, especially external sector there was a mismatch in the external sector. Demand for foreign exchange and the supply of foreign exchange doesn't meet each other, and economy, you see 2019, 2009, our capital account was not capital account, our current account was positive, and it was around 3 billion. It was continuously up, and 2010 our reserve exceeded the $10 billion, and we celebrated $10 billion, and then continuously it was rising. 2000 up to 2016 our current account was positive. 17 onward it went to at a level, but 2020, 21 and 22 it's gone to current account deposit $15 billion, where our trade export trade in an economy $60 billion US dollar export and 15 billion current account deficit, where 90 billion import. There is a huge gap, and government has undertaken huge big project, and which involve foreign exchange payment system, foreign exchange payment. So 2022 there was a multiple exchange rate, and it was undertaken to inspire the those who are sending money back to Bangladesh, wage earners and exporters. So there was a rate for the exporter, different rate for the wage earners, but it is incentivized the people, and ultimately our gap between the demand for foreign currency and supply of foreign currency increases, and that creates restriction on import, and import restriction increase the price level, especially the fuels, energy, intermediate goods, capital goods, etc. And increase in goods, investors were not in a good mood, and investment decreases. Investment decreases because of consumption, percentage of consumption growth also decreases. Once percentage of consumption growth decreases and the cost of capital, interest rate is high, and there is vulnerability in financial sector, as well as the problems arises shortage of the imported item, especially capital goods and intermediate goods, I mean the raw materials. So all this causes investment to low, which ultimately decreases our output level as well as our employment level. That brings a slowdown economy, and 8% growth has come down to 3.45% in 2020. And then when it went to recover, then another turbulence came in, and that's going on, and economy is in a way just to recover. And hopefully the monetary measure that was undertaken this time, especially the contraction monetary policy, Bangladesh normally doesn't follow the contraction monetary policy. It was the expansionary as well as accommodative monetary policy, but this time is contractionary policy rate has increased, and other sector liquidity has come down in the banking sector. So contractionary monetary policy, on the one side it is expected that our inflation rate will come down, but I am in doubt, because inflation will come down, but if investment go down, economy will be hampered. Just to achieve our mid-income level economy 2031, so we have to go further.
Thank you very much. We have to go further. Viewers who are going for a short break, please keep watching. Viewers, we are back to the talk show Promise in Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. And this is an Sayeed, anchored in this talk show. Viewers, we are having talks with Dr. Sattar, Chairman of PRI, and Mr.Abdur Rahim, former Executive Director of Bangladesh Bank. And they are very much vocal about the points they are stretching on. Well, Dr. Sattar, you know very well that there is a very tremendous pressure on the economy. At the same time, so many gossips and rumors are in the market about the foreign reserve in Bangladesh Bank. Why all these things are going on? What is your analysis of this?
I don't analyze rumors. That's my first strategy. I do analyze statistics, the data. And when it comes to foreign exchange reserves, it is a fact that Bangladesh economy and Bangladesh Bank, which holds these official reserves, they have been going through a difficult time, primarily because we lost a substantial amount of reserves in the past 2 years, trying to sort of maintain the reserve by the exchange rate at a level. And that, attempt to try to stick to an exchange rate created the situation where they started losing reserves. You can't maintain a fixed exchange rate level without having a good stock of foreign exchange reserves. So we lost about $12 to $15 billion just trying to maintain the exchange rate at a level of to 85, 86 taka per dollar. And then when they realized that it was not possible, they finally let it go, and the exchange rate depreciated by about 30% in the first place. And just recently, last week, they made further adjustment of about 6%. So in total, the exchange rate has depreciated by about 36% compared to September, October 2023. Now, that is the exchange rate if it differs from the market rate. And in the past couple of years, we also had some very unusual policies with the exchange rate. There were multiple exchange rates. The kind of multiple exchange rates that I have not heard of in any other country or even in history. There are very few instances where you have 4 or 5 exchange rates. So that experiment was really not workable in the first place. Now, as far as foreign exchange reserves are concerned, it has to do with how the balance of payments performs. And our first line of attention is our balance of trade and current account balance. And as Mr. Rahim has pointed out, yes, indeed, from 2000 to 2020, for 20 years, we had a very comfortable current account balance. In fact, 13 out of the 20 years, the current account was a modest surplus. A surplus in the current account also has another meaning. It means that we are not investing all our gross national savings. And that is not a good idea for a developing economy. A developing economy does have to run current account deficits, provided the deficit is being used for investment and it's generating growth. So our current account deficits were, contributing to investments and growth as well. Now, that has changed over the last 5 years. The current account balance has gone into deficit. And in 2022, we had a 4% of GDP current account deficit. A 4% of GDP current account deficit, if it continues for 2 to 3 years, that would be very unsustainable. Current account deficit of 0.5 to 1% of GDP is very sustainable, and that's how it was for Bangladesh. So now we have to steer the course, make sure that the current account balance does not go into 3-4% of GDP, but not by imposing controls on imports. Imports in Bangladesh context, 75 to 80% of our imports go to the productive sector, intermediate goods, raw materials, capital goods, and only 20 to 25% are consumer goods. So we need imports, and the only way to restrain imports is through the exchange rate. The price of imports will, at the moment, with 36% exchange rate depreciation, imports are very highly priced already, and that should restrain imports anyway. So one good thing I think as we have heard, the Bangladesh Bank is now going to move away from direct import controls, and that's a very good idea. I take the export receipts that Bangladesh Bank records in its balance of payments. They are the real foreign exchange that Bangladesh Bank has. And the import payments are also recorded in the balance of payments. So export receipts and import payments, they are the ones that tell us what we are spending on imports, what we are earning from exports and remittances. So I'm sure Bangladesh Bank can take care of these discrepancies that we...
Thank you very much. Bangladesh Bank will take care of this discrepancy. Mr. Abdur Rahim, what is your overall understanding about the dollar market in Bangladesh, including the reserves?
Historically, if I want to tell you, 2003, while we moved the exchange rate, fixed pegged exchange rate to floating exchange rate, then he said it's a managed exchange rate and dirty exchange rate. However, whatever it was floating, the banker could determine the price of a foreign exchange depending on demand and supply of the foreign exchange. I mean, whatever it is, it's a dollar, euro, or pound sterling, or any other currency, renminbi, whatever it may be. It was working very nice, and it was working well, and our current account balance was positive. In overall balance, in the balance of payment was positive. It was contributing to our reserve, and reserve was growing. Reserve grows to 46 billion up to in mid March 2022, and it was growing continuously. Then you see 2022 onward, what happens? Our reserve come down from 46 to $18 billion now. What happens? So while there is a gap of demand and supply of foreign currency, I mean our requirement of the foreign currency to import products, to buy the services from others, and to pay the dividend of the foreign investment from our side, and the other demand of our product, our export products, and any other things. We send the manpower to other country, they earn from there, they send the remittance. And the fourth pillar that was considered the vital to keep our economy vibrant, and what is the factor behind what causes our economy to grow up, that was one is within the country is demographic dividend. Most of the people are young, they can contribute, they can work. And three other was macroeconomic stability and the resilient inflow of the remittance and our export growth, especially the garments export growth. These four pillars kept our economy vibrant, and it was going on. But during the pandemic, what happens? The commodity market, international commodity market price goes up, so import price goes up, especially intermediate goods, capital goods, fuels, energy. We are dependent on all those things. Even in agricultural sector, our food production is sufficient, but for the irrigations, for the inputs, for the seeds, manures, we need to import from other side. So this causes, and dollar crisis, I say, I don't say the dollar crisis, the foreign exchange crisis causes the restrict our import. Import restriction, what causes ultimately brings causes domestic price to up. So it brings the inflation, and inflation, to curb the inflation, tighten monetary policy. As liquidity goes down in the banking sectors, so money available for the loanable fund is available for the investor is go down. So once contraction in monetary policy, price of the capital goes up, investment go down, output go down, and job creation, I mean the employment go down. This brings the a circle and ultimately cause total production go down. And production go down, price again increases. So to curb the inflation, we are fueling the inflation, which is one point. And another side, the investors are not very much interested to invest because inflation causes our consumption growth to reduce. So once consumption growth reduces, demand for growth goes down, investment goes down. This is a circle. So our exchange rate, there was a dilemma in the exchange rate. Exchange rate, whenever a policymaker or regulator undertake any policy, they expect a positive result. But sometimes it doesn't work. So we moved from fixed rate to floating rate to now a space. There is a ceiling and there is a float, and in between exchange rate could move. Now 117 taka, $1 equivalent. Even our reserve position increases, then it may go to 116. Even if go down again, our exchange rate goes up. There is a space the bank could do, but it's a flexible, but it's a pegged rate. I don't say it's a flexible. Flexible means within a crawling space. You can crawl within the space where there are ceiling and there are floor. So now on, we have a long-term. We have a borrowings from our development partners, our friends countries, and our government debt has been increased, and due to huge big projects, the involvement of foreign exchange is high, and the payment, and every month we have to pay a huge amount of foreign exchange, and we need to import intermediate goods and capital goods, and as well as consumable goods. So it brings the inflow of foreign currency from our export as well as from the remittance doesn't cope with, doesn't meet our foreign exchange payment obligation. There is a gap which ultimately cause our current account as well overall balance to deficit.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, viewers, we're going for a short break, and please keep watching. Viewers, welcome to the talk show Promising Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement, and we are having talks with two giant economists. One is Mr. Dr. Sattar, other being Mr. Abdur Rahim. Well, Dr. Sattar, one member of the parliament, Mr. Abdul Latif Siddiq, raised a question in the parliament a few days ago, addressing the speaker. Budget is not being made by the member of parliament, rather it is coming from outside. And these are the root causes of all the crises in the field of economics. What is your realization?
There is always a political economy element in economic policy. You can have all the first best policies within your package, which is the case right now. Yes, there has been, but these are fundamental. Economic fundamentals tell you that you have this problem, you have an inflation problem, you have a balance of payments problem, you have a reserve problem. In order to handle that, there are certain fundamentals that you have to adopt in order to resolve this, I would say, turbulence. It's not the end of Bangladesh's economy. Bangladesh economy, 50 plus years, Mr. Rahim has already mentioned that it has been regarded as a good example of development. They call it, a model of development. Some very expert leading development economists have described Bangladesh as a success story of development. So, but there is turbulence, and these are, having a situation where you have a balance of payments problem, if you have inflation, which is a sign of macroeconomic instability, and you have monetary restraint, fiscal restraint, all of them being applied to the economy. But the inflation problem is very serious. It hurts the poor. So I wouldn't agree that the principles that are being adopted right now, policy principles, these are some fundamental economic principles. It's not, it's not coming from Harvard. It is what economists around the country have been telling the government. You have this problem A, you have to use instrument B to resolve that problem. If problem A is inflation, you need at least your monetary management, fiscal management, and exchange rate management to address that problem. And these are not coming from outside. These are now inside. All economists in Bangladesh have been saying that this is what needs to be done.
Thank you very much. I will come to you again. Mr. Abdur Rahim, I raised the question that budget is being made by the non-political leaders. And Member of Parliament is nothing but echoing the budget passed by the Ministry of Finance in cooperation with other countries, basically NBR. What is your focus?
Political statement has a different dimension. I don't want to take into consideration the political statement. Professionalism is an important issue. Those who are preparing the budget, they have experience, they know the economy and the people surrounding them, stakeholders, they are taking the advice, recommendation from the stakeholders, and they have an experience regarding the previous year's activities. So when it is going to Parliament people will see what sector is giving the priority, whether environment friendly, whether green finance is talking about in the budget, whether budget is giving importance to the human resource development, whether it is sufficient budget for our health sector, etc. So I don't want to echo with the Parliament one member what he's talking about the budget. But budget is prepared, I think, by professional people, and they know the pros and cons of the budget, and it goes to budget and it analyzes for a long time in the budget, and each and every member of Parliament give their opinion on the issue, and then finally it passes. So I don't agree with this statement.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sattar, you know very well that government is borrowing from the banks lavishly, and as a result of which private sector is being tortured. And what is your opinion?
You've hit the right point here. Okay, but I think the government has realized that if you have a big problem like inflation and you have a fiscal deficit, all economies run fiscal deficits, developing as well as developed, except oil exporting countries. That's different. So we will run fiscal deficit. Question is, how do you finance? How do you finance that deficit? What we have been doing, about 40% of that fiscal deficit is financed through multilateral loans. We've been doing very well borrowing from multilateral at very soft and low interest terms, which is good. But the other part, about 60%, has been financed through domestic borrowing. And here there are two borrowings that government does. One is from the Bangladesh Bank. The other is from the private sector banks and private people like Sanchoy Patro. This is borrowing from the private people. Now, when government borrows from the Bangladesh Bank, it's pure money creation that would fuel inflation. And the good news is that in the recent past, if you take the past 3 months or more, the government has almost stopped borrowing from the Bangladesh Bank, knowing and recognizing the fact that this is going to be too inflationary. And I think in the next budget, we will see some measures where the financing of the deficit the minimal part of it would be financing through borrowing from Bangladesh Bank. There will be some borrowing from the public, which is costly. Mind you, borrowing from multilateral is the cheapest and very good source of financing. But borrowing from the public will be high cost. Sanchoy Patra interest rates are high. And Bangladesh, the fiscal fiscal part of the budget sees that the cost of expenditures, interest cost of expenditures, interest cost of borrowing is going up, and and revenue is not rising enough. So one of the ways to avoid this inflationary financing of the deficit is to mobilize more revenue, and that is where I think we need some radical reforms to really rejuvenate the tax administration. That is, this is the time, I think, to bite the bullet and make some very radical reforms in tax administration. And that can give us dynamism in tax revenues. You see, tax revenues should be rising faster than GDP growth. In our case, that has not been the case. The tax revenues growth have been falling behind GDP growth. And that gives us a very low, it used to be 10%, it's come down to 8% now of GDP. So we need some radical reforms in the tax administration in order to mobilize more revenues, but by reforming rather than raising taxes or pressuring people. Those who pay taxes have to pay more taxes. That's not the way we should go. I think this is the time when you have challenges, when you have challenges before, that is the time. When you have a crisis, for instance, that's the time when you have to do some serious reform.
Thank you very much. Do some serious. Well, okay. Mr. Abdur Rahim, it is in the air. There is a gap between Bangladesh Bank and NBR on many issues. And being a former high officials of Bangladesh Bank.
Well, Bangladesh Bank deals with monetary phenomena. On the other hand, NBR is Internal Resource Mobilization Authority of government. They sources the money for government budget and they relates to the fiscal environment. Bangladesh Bank deals with the monetary issues. So I think two independent authority, two independent policy makers is doing it differently. But there might have a correlation, coordination, as well as a middlemanship relationship between these two organizations. You see the saving certificate, what public buys for the government borrowing from the public, as he is mentioning, and the government treasury bills, treasury bonds. Now public can buy also treasury bonds, treasury bills, but public doesn't know. Even the bankers doesn't inform their client that you can buy. If you want to invest in treasury bill, treasury bond, that doesn't inform this message to the public, and public doesn't know. You see now, treasury bill, treasury bond, and worldwide is the safest investment, and it has a lowest rate of interest. But now, last week, treasury bonds interest was above 12%. 2 years treasury bond rate of interest was above 12%, where savings certificate interest rate is 11%, 9% to 10%, and term deposit interest rate is 9 or something like that. So if people knows that he can buy the treasury bills through his bank, and treasury bills and treasury bonds rate of interest is higher and safest investment, and there is a certainty to get it back money, there is no uncertainty at all. So you see, this is the NBR's product, internal resource divisions, not NBR has another wing that collect only the taxes. Internal resource division, for them, the Bangladesh Bank is working for this. So savings certificate, bonds, these are auction take place through Bangladesh Bank. Bangladesh Bank is working for the government, for the NBR. But there, I don't think there is a conflict between the NBR and Bangladesh Bank. And Bangladesh Bank and NBR both are working for the government, and the ultimate objective of the both, that the economy will be fueled and the economy will be vibrant and the economy will go further as it was.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sattar, 1 minute for you. Last message.
I'm I'm generally very optimistic about Bangladesh economy. I would like to believe that the future is going to be even better than the past. We have done well so far, but there is turbulence in the past, in the last couple of years. But now, I think there is a realization that it's not enough to tinker at the margin. It's time to take some radical steps. And the right steps, I think, are now evident. We need to control inflation, and the right step would be monetary restraint, fiscal restraint, and exchange rate management, uniform and flexible exchange rate. And these steps have been taken. I would like to see the budget is forthcoming in the next couple of weeks or 3 weeks. We'll see the budget. That budget should give us an indication as to whether the government is now moving. We've seen it moving in the right policies in the right direction. The budget should now confirm that, yes, we are going to, in the medium term, in the short to medium term, the government will be moving policies in the right direction to solve, first of all, this inflation problem, and then the exchange rate reserves, the reserves issue, and all of that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Sattar, and thank you very much, Mr.Abdur Rahim. Well, viewers, we're going to end this talk show, and before ending the talk show, I have to summarize what the two speakers uttered and voiced here. Basically, both of them are very much aware of what is going on in Bangladesh. At the same time, being an economist of the first water, Dr. Sattar feels that Bangladesh is on the way to development. At the same time, there are so many things that has to be settled to overcome the crisis in Bangladesh. But he is very much optimistic of the future. At the same time, Mr. Abdur Rahim, basically being a banker and financial expert, he feels the Bangladesh Bank is moving on the right track with some deviation from time to time. But that deviation should not occur in the coming days. And he believes that economy is not so bad, which is being thought in different sort of different sectors. But at the same time, both of them believe the reserve and forex in Bangladesh, though it is being faced with so many challenges, but days are coming when everything will be okay because of so many policies being taken by the Bangladesh Bank, especially the Ministry of Finance is very much aware of all these things. And both of them believe that today, tomorrow, all these things will be settled and Bangladesh will move ahead with the head high in pride, not hung down in shame. And thank you very much. We'll meet again in the next talk show.